The Minnesota Vikings.
Your guys.
That's my team, man. And
that's your state, man.
Yeah, that is my state. I got to go there for sure. Kevin O'Connell, he is not their head coach yet, but after the Super Bowl, it is likely he's going to sign with the Vikings. He just wants to focus on his game. That's why it's not officially official. But how much different will the Vikings offense look with Kevin O'Connell? He's coming from Sean McVay's coaching tree. We know coaches like this have worked out in the past. Zach Taylor, Brandon Staley in his first season with the Chargers goes 9-8. And now you have Kevin O'Connell, who's going to the Vikings. They already have the personnel in place. They have the quarterback in place. How do they look? I mean, what are your expectations?
I love the young hiring. I love that moving into this new era of football where we're seeing a plethora of young coaches bringing in a new dynamic to football teams. And this is a guy who has been working with Sean McVay, who's one of the more brilliant offensive minds in the league. And now you're bringing that to this Vikings team that has Jettas, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, who is one of the most exciting running backs in the league. And I'm assuming Kirk Cousins as their quarterback, at least right now where we stand in February 2022. Kirk Cousins is going to be the quarterback of the team. I do believe he will be the quarterback of this team unless something insane happens that a quarterback wants to be traded, i.e. Kyler Murray. But I doubt it that they would do that. No way, no how. That being said, I like it. I just think they need to address a little bit of their offensive line. They did a little bit of that, bringing in Dehls, and that was a good move, and that's a great piece to protecting Kirk Cousins because I believe the run blocking is really good, but their passing game is what brings them their most success, where you have Jettas and Thielen. These are two of the best wide receivers in the league, at least one of the better duos in the league. Jettas being a top 5 receiver at the minimum. I like where the Vikings are going. You had an old school type of guy with your last head coach. I'm blanking on his name right now. Mike Zimmer, thank you so much. And he's one of those guys that really wasn't a player's coach, was really more just oriented and so fixated on just the game and winning as itself. But there's more that comes with coaching than just football and the game. You really have to build a chemistry with these guys. You want them to be 100% in on what you're trying to do. Bringing in a young guy that can relate to at least a little bit to these players, bringing in a little bit more camaraderie, which I believe the Vikings do need. I like the signing.
Yeah, I like it as well. He's another player another coach who was drafted in the NFL. He's a 3rd-round pick by the Patriots, and he really rose up the ranks quick. He played from 2008 to 2012, I want to say, took a few years off, but then came into coaching just in 2015. So a very quick rise coming from 2015, just being an assistant on staff, to a head coach in 2022. So it's obvious he's a very smart guy and someone who could relate not only to players, but to other coaches, executives, because you don't rise up the ranks just by being smart. You're going to have good relationships with everybody in the building. And I know there's been a lot of talk about how he doesn't call plays since he was the OC with the Rams, and that is true, but there's more to the NFL than just calling plays. You have a whole week of game plan, situational football, and that's all stuff that O'Connell was a part of on Sean McVay's staff. And he really took on more responsibility after they traded for Matt Stafford. Once Stafford got there, he was responsible for manufacturing some more explosive plays, but not just explosive plays, but out of just straight dropbacks. A lot of defenses got used to the Rams playing a lot of play action and boots in 2019 and 2020 with Jared Goff. So one of his responsibilities was, how can we make these explosive plays still happen, but doing it out of straight dropbacks, so it's something that defense wouldn't expect. And this previous season, the Rams had the same explosive play rate without play action as the rest of the league did with play action. So it's a good sign that in his task, and there's more responsibilities he had, but that was one of the main things when I was reading through his experience that he was able to, hone in on and really thrive in. And that definitely helps having Sean McVay on your staff too. But, that's just one thing, Vikings fans, if you get worried that he didn't call plays before. And there was one article I was reading on The Athletic as well, that expects O'Connell to run a similar offense to Sean McVay, which isn't surprising. And that offense, they really, you're looking at the 3rd receiver more than the 2nd tight end, which would be different for the Vikings in previous seasons. I mean, they traded a 4th-round pick for Chris Herndon, so they obviously wanted some depth there. And we saw this past season, KJ Osborne had a breakout year. There was some injuries to Thielen, but even still, I think KJ Osborne was a really good 3rd receiver for him, and he'll probably have even a bigger role. We're saying this year, with Van Jefferson having a breakout season, and Odell coming in and filling in really nice for Robert Woods. So I think the receiver is going to get involved more, because we saw even earlier this season, like there was games where Dehls would just disappear. He wouldn't be getting targeted. He wouldn't be getting the yards that we expect him to have at this elite level. So I think he'll come in and really make it a lot easier for Kirk Cousins to get the ball out quicker and get it into Dehls and Thielen's hands, and KJ Osborne as well. And to nobody's surprise, Sean McVay thinks really high of him. He praised his ability to lead an offense, and Stafford too. Stafford said that he wouldn't be where he is now without Kevin O'Connell. So time will tell, because it is hard to really judge, a coach, especially when they don't have play calling history. There's kind of things you just have to dig into the weeds and see what you could really find with them. But I do like, the young approach, someone who's the complete opposite of Zimmer, someone who can relate to players. And I think it's a good sign that he was able to raise up the ranks really quick, because that shows me that his personality is right up there with his, with his brain.
Would I have preferred the Vikings to sign John Harbaugh? I keep forgetting the name, man. Jim Harbaugh? Absolutely. And when it didn't happen, was I a little bit stunned, disappointed? I absolutely was.
He didn't get the job. Like, they said, we don't want you.
It's not that. It's just that the Vikings brought in Jim Harbaugh for an interview.
Mm-hmm.
While Harbaugh thought he was being brought in to be offered the job.
I understand.
But the Vikings said no. Like, this is an interview, and we're gonna decide between our final candidates and you. And Jim Harbaugh, already having security at Michigan's like, I didn't understand that. I thought this was my job outright. I thought it was mine to lose. I'm going back to Michigan. And that's kind of how it happened.
Bro's got a big head, but I respect it. That's my head coach.
It disappointed me that they didn't get Jim Harbaugh, but neither here or there. He's back at Michigan. I like this hiring. It's not official yet, but when it does happen, I like it. Kevin O'Connell is someone that you mentioned had a big hand in designing the offense. And it's important to note that Sean McVay's offense isn't overly complicated. It's not simplistic, but they do run the same things. And Sean McVay's a big believer in, if it works, we're going to keep doing it. He doesn't try to add a bunch of tweaks and wrinkles to his stuff. If it works, we keep doing it. And that's why in 2018 they had one of the best offenses that we've seen in the modern NFL. And then in 2019, they dropped off because the Patriots, Brian Flores, who designed the game plan to stop his offense, the league kind of figured them out. And then Sean McVay took some running concepts from Greg Roman. They bounced back the very next year. And now that he has a better quarterback in Stafford, it allowed him to now go more shotgun heavy and go into more empty sets and go in 11 personnel more than usual, even though they were doing it before. The difference between Shanahan and McVay's offenses are that McVay goes in 11 personnel, which means he has 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end. And Kyle Shanahan goes into 21 personnel a lot. I don't know if I'm saying it right. I might not be. But it's basically 2 wide receivers and 2 tight end sets.
Mm-hmm.
McVay uses the third wide receiver as a blocker, or one of the main guys as a blocker. That was Robert Woods' job in the offense.
Devastating.
And Shanahan, the second tight end, is usually Kyle Juszczyk for the 49ers, and That's why he's in there a lot. I think this is going to be great for the Vikings because they already have the offensive personnel in place. The biggest mystery to me still in the NFL amongst amongst NFL fans is why people still think Kirk Cousins isn't a great quarterback.
I agree.
It's ridiculous. I understand the primetime record. Oh, he doesn't perform in these big-time games. Look at the stats in his primetime games. Go into the context of those losses. If you're going to honestly tell me those are on Kirk Cousins, you're just not watching the games. You're just following a narrative. He's had his most efficient seasons and the best seasons of his career wearing a Minnesota Vikings uniform. All with one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL each time he's been there. Mm-hmm. They're finally getting better. He's a franchise quarterback. Is he in the elite tier? No. Is he in the Matthew Stafford tier?
No.
How is he not? How is he not?
No.
How is he not?
He'd be in the playoffs.
He would be.
No.
I mean, the Vikings have a great roster.
What do you mean? They were the 29th ranked defense in the NFL.
The talent was all there.
We've seen bad defense go to the playoffs.
Now Matthew Stafford. When Matthew Stafford has made the playoffs, has been with one of like a top 15 defense.
Fair enough.
So Kirk Cousins, like he's a great quarterback. It's as simple as that. To me, he falls in between like the Derek Carr.
I'll also say
Matt Ryan.
He's a tier
tier.
down from Stafford.
Kirk
you
has
can't put him in
Kirk
the
has
Stafford
Jettas, Thielen, Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, come on, bro.
Irv is a pretty good tight end.
Irv is injured.
Yeah, unfortunately.
He's got like a
Entire
top 3 wide receiver core in the league. And
So
one of the
do
best
the
running
Rams.
backs in the league.
Okay, whatever. This isn't the
But-
Stafford versus Kirk.
I know,
debate.
but going
No, you
to the
just put him
Super
in
Bowl,
his-
you
you just put him in
gotta
his tier when he
put
put
him
his
tier
Super
down.
Bowl.
I think he's.
Come on.
I feel like the Rams would have made the Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins on the roster.
I don't know.
Why wouldn't they?
They wouldn't have.
I think
Why
Stafford's
wouldn't
more talented than Cousins. I think he's better arm.
No, no, for sure. He's talented.
He's better.
But Kirk Cousins is more efficient. He's a better decision maker.
Hmm.
He had 33 touchdowns and 7 picks this year.
Yeah, he did have. He always has.
Dude had one of the most efficient seasons.
Being safe with the football isn't always a plus.
It's not always a plus. You mentioned the KJ Osborne point. He had a really great season last year. He really rose onto the scene. It's a shame that in Madden his speed is an 87. I can't use him at all.
That's crazy.
But he is a very good player. Kevin O'Connell implemented spread out pre-snap and empty sets along with a lot of 11 personnel stacks and bunches. And he put Cooper Kupp in favorable situations.
No doubt.
To the point that Cooper Kupp had one of the more historic seasons in the NFL by a receiver. And the knock on Cooper Kupp is that he's not getting guarded by the J.C. Jacksons, Jalen Ramseys, Marshawn Lattimore's of the world. And he's not getting guarded by number 1 corners, which is true. But the fact that you can scheme up your best wide receiver to not having to be guarded by these guys is, to me, a genius tactic.
That's a good thing. Why?
If I'm a Vikings fan, I don't want Justin Jefferson to go up against Ramsey every single play.
I don't know.
I want him to go up against Darius Williams.
Yeah.
That's who I want.
Yeah.
So if I'm a Vikings fan, I now know that Jettas is going to have favorable matchups, and that's what Kevin O'Connell is going to prioritize. And this past season, this current season, the Rams have dropped back more than they did in previous years. They aren't using play action as much. And this year, Kirk Cousins, the Vikings as a whole, their team, their concepts, they ran play action less than in previous years before. So Kirk Cousins was dropping back. I feel like this is a perfect fit. Justin Jefferson last season had 7 games with under 10 targets. Cooper Kupp had 4. It's a big difference. I think we're going to see a breakout year from Justin Jefferson next season.
Even more so than what we've already seen. I understand what he means. He means all world. All world.
Like a Cooper Kupp-esque season?
I think we're going to put him as the best receiver in the NFL next year.
Okay.
That's what I think we're going to do.
I was going to say a breakout season for Jettas is what the season Cup just.
I was going to say because he's top 3 for me personally already.
Me too. What sold me on Kevin O'Connell the most though is that he conveyed a firm belief in Kirk Cousins, and I love that because Kirk is my captain, and as somebody who's on a ship, I want this new sailor. He's coming in. He's a sailor. He's going to be manning the wheel as well. I want my sailor to have respect for the current captain. And that's Captain Kirk. That's Crunch Time Kirk. And this season,
Crunch Time Kirk.
This season, a lot of the narratives on Kirk Cousins are unfair. And man, all it takes, we just saw it with Stafford. All it takes is 1 year for the narratives to wash away. It just took 1 year with Stafford.
But the narrative for Stafford was different because he was on abysmal Lions teams. These Vikings teams
Washington
have been competitive at the very least.
Their defenses haven't been.
Their
And
team
at least in the
general,
last 2 years.
They've had rosters, though, and defenses in previous
and
years that
RG3
were
took
great.
that team to the playoffs. So
And he
it's
beat
not,
the Saints in the playoffs.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. We don't have the same. Like, I think Cousins is a good quarterback, but
Right.
I think I'm not ready
He's
to
a
put
captain.
him great.
He's a captain, bro.
Sick. So
He's
Zach
captain.
Wilson.
He's a captain.
Zach Wilson's captain
No,
too.
I'm saying, but he's Captain Kirk.